like Nate Dogg. You know it's a hit when he spit.
Is smoke your name or smoking what you do?
It's not the same old anymore. It's something fresh and something new.
People in general, they hate rich kids.
Let's get unfiltered.
Smoke, week 1 of college football is here, and we got a big one. Miami going to the swamp to play Florida. Now, you've been to the swamp before. Is it as scary as they say?
Read nerves. You look up in the crowd, and it's like the whole stadium is moving. Reed, that was supposed to be my first start. But my DB coach pulled me aside and said, hey, Smoke, listen, this thing might be a little bit too much for you. 90,000 out there, you look up, you might give up your stomach. But you know what, Reed? Went in about 7 plays in, got in and got really, really busy. 90,000, I think we can handle that. 39-40, and breaking that 30-game home streak. Extra point, walked away. Big Sam, Chris Samuels, great time down there in Gainesville. You know what, Reed? It's going to be our game of the week, UM versus Miami. We're going to get with it. But this is something great, Reed. Never thought that we could do this. 30-game home winning streak, young team, 21-ranked team going in there versus the 3rd overall team. This is when Florida and Steve Spurrier was rolling, rocking and rolling. And that young Bama team with 2 budding Hall of Famers and some young gunners, including myself, Antonio Carter, and Andrew Zhao, Ahmad Galloway, Kendall Moorhead, we went down there and chopped the head off that gator.
Whoo! Miami, Florida, game of the week this week for us. Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm Carl Reed.
I'm Smoke Dixon.
In today's rundown, we will break down our game of the week, the University of Miami versus the Florida Gators, and the keys to victory. Which 2 players are needed to have big-time moments for their team to have a chance to win? Crunch time on how Arizona, Utah, USC, and SMU will fill in their new conference. Smoke, we got action. Game of the week this week, number 19, Miami Hurricanes at the Florida Gators. Miami leads this all-time series. Hasn't been played in a while, though. 29-27, 12-9 in Gainesville. Florida Gators Smoke 3 straight seasons with 7+ losses. That's an ugly blemish right there. Miami has allowed 22.8 points a game in 2023, the fewest since 2019. Smoke, let's get into the matchups, the player matchup. If these guys show up and play, who gives their best team the win from the Miami Hurricanes?
Well, Miami last year, Carl, they had issues all last year, and the big thing was quarterback play. So what did they do in the portal? They went out and got Cam Ward. If you watch any of that spring game, you saw he had command over that offense and overall command of that team. You heard that locker room saying, this is our true leader. Reed, there's rumblings out there that said 90,000. This is the most fans he's ever played in front of. He's never seen nothing like this. And honestly, if you've never been in the SEC, you've never seen 90,000 making the whole stadium move to the point that if you look up, that thing's going to shake. But when you look at Cam Ward, I don't think that shakes him at all. His best games last year was against the best competition. Oregon, Washington. That was his best games, those 2 games. And then you look at him and Shador in the summertime, we brought it up. Highly and truly competitive young man that's willing and wants all of the smoke. So I don't think that fan and all that noise and Florida doing the Gator chomp and Brandon Spikes might be in the audience sitting there looking at him. I don't think that's going to shake this young man. He's going to come out. He's going to have good control over that offense. Quiet feet like he's always had in that pocket. The only thing now you got to look at him and say, he's taking a lot of sacks when he holds on to that ball. When he was at Washington State, one of the things that he did was turnovers. And it wasn't interceptions, it was more fumbles. Why? Because he wanted to hold on to the ball, extend plays, because he didn't have players like he does at Miami right now around him just to get the ball out of his hands and to make plays.
I'm going to tell you, Smoke, the key to stopping a quarterback like Cam Ward, when you got an offense that's explosive, is having great play from the defensive line. And the Florida Gators got a couple guys, but I want you to pay attention to Florida Gator number 94, Tyreak Sapp. This is a guy that gives you a lot of versatility in what now you see him lining up on the inside as a 3-tech. If you look at his extension and the way he gets penetration and rides the guy down the line attacking the V of the neck. Inside again, shoots the gap, via the neck, gets downfield at a 45-degree angle to make the tackle. Now you look at him coming from the edge, hand placement is incredible, push the tackle back, attacks the inside gap, and now he takes him out. 6'2.5" from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 272 pounds. He was the 191st ranked prospect out of the 2021 class. Started 11 games last year, 24 total tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. This is a guy that they're going to need a big game out of on the defensive line with some of those other guys. They got George Grums also, a transfer from Northern Illinois on the defensive line. That's what they're going to have to attack them if they want to have success against Cam Ward.
Reed, if I told you that my first full-time job as a collegiate coach, what position group was I coaching? What would you say?
I would say corners.
And you were so wrong. Defensive line. So I understand the importance of a defensive line pushing the pocket from the interior and making sure now you flush Cam Ward to a particular side because they're going to have to get him off of his spot because X in the slot is a problem. And when you move him off the spot, you have some other defensive linemen that's going to come up there and get to him. Now, this now goes into how the coaches are going to match up into our next segment. And I know that's what you want to touch into because you want to get into your coach and ball talk.
Well, Austin Armstrong is the defensive coordinator, but Smoke, what we've been hearing some rumblings out of Gainesville. What are your sources telling you?
Ron Roberts is now calling plays at Florida. This guy that was at Auburn last year, him and Billy Napier spent some time together at Lafayette, and he understands how to call defense in the SEC. At Auburn, he wasn't great, but he was good enough. Now, one of the things that is going to be similar, and a lot of the players aren't going to have to learn something new. They don't have to learn a new defense because this is the same defense that they ran. The only difference now is how he's calling it. He's going to call more of an aggressive defense. He's going to have the defense now. They call it a creeper, and it's almost a match concept blitz and sending different guys. If you're 2x2, means 2 receivers to one side, and you split. If a receiver goes in motion now, creates 3x1, and now creates and triggers different blitzes. Mm-hmm. If you look at when Bama played him last year, and they had a tough game against in Tennessee, struggled against him just because they changed the pre-snap and post-snap look on Bazooka Joe. You see Bazooka Joe right now scrambling, moving all over the place because at one point when you saw him, there was a safety in the middle of the field. When you go back, there's a split safety. The Mike linebacker that you mic'd him to and wanted to send your running back to now just dropped in coverage, so your running back don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And all you want to do now when you're playing against a quarterback like Cam Ward is make sure that he holds the ball for 1 more second. Because if you study Cam, and I went back and watched all of his turnovers and watched all of his plays that weren't good, the key plays that he struggled with when defenses changed. And when he tried to hold on to the ball and try to do too much, it got him in trouble. So that's all they want to do now with Ron Roberts' defense is make sure that he holds the ball for a second, 1 more second so your guy now can get to him. And now you've slowed that game, and you're bringing the game now into the 4th quarter. And Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal, they're on Bama staff together. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure Billy's going to say, Mario, one of your hiccups that you need to work on that we haven't seen is what? Late game situations. So they want to bring that Miami team all the way to the 4th quarter and say, Cam, can you make plays when needed? And Mario, can you execute these last few plays to either kick a field goal to win or mess up a 4th down call and give us now the opportunity to bring everybody out the swamp and get the Gators rolling again?
Well, we got to go to the offensive side of the ball now and talk about the OC at Miami, Shannon Dawson. What Cam Ward does for them, Smoke, offensively in their air raid offense, most people talk about RPOs, the run-pass option. Cam gives you a RRP, a run-pass option, because now he can run to the tailback. He also is a threat to attack the end defender on the end of the line of scrimmage as a runner himself, and the linebacker that vacates and occupies for the passing option. So when you got guys that are going to attack in the blitz, you have to have rush integrity. You almost want to mush rush them because if you just fly up the field on a guy like Cam Ward, he can take off in the run game if you lack your blitzing integrity.
So basically, you just want to form a cup.
Yes.
Keep him inside the pocket, make him play within the pocket, and at times flush him to either his left or right side, but you don't want him playing off that launch point.
I would, when he's on the left hash or the middle of the field, I would bring the pressure from the field, so I want him running left. I want him having to throw from his left side, and I want him running to his left. I don't want him running a gap to his right side. Right-handed quarterbacks that are dynamic like him really can gash you in those type of situations. So I'm going to bring the rush from the field to try to force him to his left-hand side and make him play left-hand dominant.
Well, the great coordinators will tell you they always want a right-hand quarterback to play what? Left-handed. But Reed, look at it like this. I know that you said the air raid offense, but one of the biggest acquisitions that Miami did this year is who? Damian Martinez. Everyone looks at this air raid offense as saying pass, pass, pass. They spread you out, open up those splits, and what they want to do, they want to gash you. It's going to be a 30% run, 7% pass, but those 30% runs, those are explosive runs with one of the better inside the box, inside runners in college football.
Well, that's how this hurts you, by also having him and Cam back there together, because when you go 10 personnel and you going either 3-by-1 or you going 2-by-2, that gives you that 5-man box, which now you're down. You got 5 O-linemen against 5 defensive players with 2 dynamic runners. And even if you go 6, we can read that last guy, and now I got 2-man game on the end with either zone read or we're going power read to the strong side. So it's giving us a ton of options offensively in a 2-way go with 2 dynamic players. They can put some pressure on this Gator defense just by how they align the formations.
And don't forget Mark Fletcher, young, explosive running back that we didn't see during the spring, but a dynamic 1-2 combination with Damian Martinez. This is going to be a good game. But Reed, some of the things that when we looked at this matchup, we always wanted to see, did they execute what they needed to in the offseason in terms of filling in the gap, either in the portal or address it in terms of high school? Miami did. Miami knew up front they were light. When I mean light, that means in size. And the way that you've seen in college football, teams have won late in the season. Michigan did it, Bama did it, Georgia did it, was with the defensive line. They went into the portal, and they didn't necessarily get the top-rated guys.
They got some good ones.
They got some really good players that could be second platoon, second wave, edge, and interior defensive linemen. So when they're playing against a Florida team that's bigger than them up front, because Florida's going to try to wear them down, because Miami struggled last year with pro-style offenses that ran at them downhill, because they're not big up front. In the front seven, they're not big. Linebackers and defensive line, not big. But they attacked the portal the proper way of getting reinforcement to make sure that defensive line is solid.
When I look at that list and I see the name Simeon Burrow, he's a guy that I know for sure a lot of coaches coveted him. Even though we got him at an 87 grade, there's not a coach around who needed a defensive lineman that did not want him. Now, did the Florida Gators smoke? Did they get their needs addressed in the portal?
Not at all. Because when you went into it last year, and this is where I say, Reed, you have to get executives in your building and get a general manager in your building to make sure that they're properly putting together your roster and understanding your needs. And it's like you just said, you don't necessarily need to go out there and pay $1.5, $3 million, whatever you have to pay for a good offensive lineman. Left tackles, they say right now, going from $650 to $1 million. But you can't spend money on just one guy because you really need 8 to go throughout the whole season, 18 on your team to properly practice and get each other lathered up and protected to play the game. So they didn't help themselves out up front. And the thing that they needed more playmakers.
Yes.
They didn't address it. So you have the same team that's coming back that's doing the same thing. Now, you might say we've improved on what we did, but we just saw a graphic that said Florida 3 straight 7-loss seasons.
Well, Smoke, I'm going to tell you, I'm excited because the guys that I know that are associated with the Florida Gators, they think that they're going to rough Miami up. So that's going to be our game of the week. Also, with the game of the week, we have Fan Appreciation Week. Starts today. Free VIP access for today only. It ends Tuesday, September the 3rd at 11:59 Eastern Time. This promotion is for new. Listen to me, guys. This promotion is for new and monthly members only.
I'm getting smoke dicks and I'm spitting facts. Now let's hit some heated topics, just in time for group chat.
Welcome to our group chat segment of the show where Smoke and I go through the conversations that we have been discussing in our group chat, and we're in several of them. There's some real psychos in our group chats too, Smoke. By the way,
Most of them your people. Not me.
the first topic, how these teams will fare in their new conference. These are the teams, Smoke, that we wanted to talk about that we're moving into new conference and how they fare. Our first team that we're going to discuss, the University of Arizona. How do you think they fare in the Big 12?
Well, Reed, listen. Everybody wanted to beat Arizona up and saying, well, they got ripped apart in the portal. They got destroyed. They don't have a strong team. Shame on you. Do a little bit more deeper dive. Do the unfiltered dive. Because when you have two of the most dynamic players, Noah and T-Mac out there, it's scary for the Big 12. This team right here can come out and they can win the Big 12 because they can score points. They can make you play at their pace. There's a 2 NFL football players that can easily, every single week, drop in 40 points a game.
Exciting on offense. I don't know if that defense, Smoke, is going to be good enough to win the Big 12. I've been loving Fafita for a long time. Dad is one of the top youth football coaches in the country, OC Buckeyes out of California. But, Smoke, where do you see them winning at here?
Reed, listen, nobody plays defense anymore. Just giving you a heads up. Right. So the game that you got to really look at is K-State. K-State, when they come out of it, that's going to be their third game. That's a matchup. And then after K-State, you know they got Utah. So back-to-back weeks, that's going to be their toughest run right there. If they can get there and split that and come out 11-1, Reed, I think they got a real shot at doing this.
What I love about that situation, K-State and Utah back-to-back, they're going to make you play run defense, power. You're going to see power, 45 different variations. Let's go to Utah, Smoke. Utah Utes. I think for them, they're coming into the Big 12. This is one of the most consistent programs in the country. 8-5 a year ago, 5-4 in conference. But Kyle Whittingham has been at Utah, it seems like forever, has been there since he was the D coordinator for Urban Meyer. He runs an excellent program, top to bottom, which is built around the line of scrimmage. Nobody is as consistent as him. I think that Utah does an incredible job. They return Cam Rising, who's the leader of their football team. And so I think for them, they match up with the Big 12 teams a lot better than they did in the Pac-12 because they're going to bring a style week in and week out that the Big 12 is not used to seeing. They're going to bring a counterproductive style. Everybody wants to throw. Everybody wants to RPO. Everybody wants to play 90 plays a game. Utah brings you into the fence and they lock the gate, like the old school Mick Foley versus Undertaker cage matches. When you look at this schedule, all right, it starts off like Southern Utah, Baylor, Utah State. I think their first major test is going to be at the road at Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy always finds a way to have his team winning and rolling, but I don't think anybody on the schedule can match Utah's physicality. The only Big 12 team that plays a physical style similar to them is K-State. I really like Utah's chances, especially with getting Cam Rising back.
Well, Reed, you know, matchups make games. And them matching up in the conference, they're the ones that are playing everyone left-handed. Because everybody, like you just said, they want to get out on the barn, spread it out, and start playing basketball on grass. But every year that we look at Utah, what do we always say? Who and how did they get that guy to play so well, so good, and where has he been? Last year it was Jonah Ellis, Luther Ellis' son, leading the NCAA top 5 in sacks. And they always play a scrappy football game. You and I both know, coach, player, exec, the team that you never wanted to play was that one that made it muddy, murky, and sloppy for you. If you're a sexy and pretty team that didn't want to get your hands dirty and they made you start playing in their way, now you're playing out of sync. Now your third downs are now 3rd and 8s, and they're coming at you with blitzes. And they don't play tag football. No. They put their hat on you in the proper way. And like you said, over a period of time and playing physical ball, you don't want to do that so often. I like this look.
Let's move along. Let's move to another former Pac-12 team, and let's go to California. The USC Trojans moving to the Big Ten. They're 8-5. Now listen, people expect the Trojans to compete for national championships. Do you think that they can do that in the Big Ten?
Reed, I think they can compete. I don't know if this is national championship year one, just because coming off of losing the #1 overall pick. I don't know if you bounce back off of that. But what they did do, they addressed that defense. Yes. They had a bunch of good defensive coaches coming over. DeAnt Lynn. That's A. Lynn's son. We worked together in Buffalo together. Bright mind, sharp. Studied with Rex Ryan. So you know what's coming at you.
Yep.
At some point, it's going to be sound physical defense. But on 3rd down, you're going to see some exotic looks, and they're going to get at you. Doug Belt, one of the hotter names last year. Phenomenal recruiter, DB coach.
Thought he would be a D coordinator. Thought he was going to get a big-time D coordinator job.
So when you look at it, Lincoln Riley has 2 coordinators, maybe even 3. I'm going to let you touch on the 3rd one, in his building. So there's no issues of game planning, players being ready, and you have 2 guys that understand what the locker room should look like, sound like, but the expectation of them coming out and playing quality football and being sound, good tackling, great communication, because they both understand, DBs, if you don't communicate on that back end, you don't have a chance.
Also, they hired for the linebackers coach, Coach Inns, who was the head coach at North Dakota State. Everybody in football knows how good North Dakota State has been. They got a big game tonight against Colorado. Coach Inns left. He's now the linebacker coach at USC, brings another dynamic defensive mind. And they got E. Hen, the defensive line coach of the Los Angeles Rams, to come to SC, the guy who has been coaching Aaron Donald the last several seasons on the defensive line. The additions that the USC Trojans have made on defense from a coaching standpoint are significant. It showed Lincoln Riley and the schools focus on knowing that they had to shore the defense up, which has been the Achilles heel of the Trojans the last couple of seasons. Now the players have to play.
Now, when you talk about players, Reed, that's roster construction. And we know that Coach Riley tried his best to get his hands on our guest from Tuesday, James Blanchard. So he's showing you that I want to get the top talent here. And by any means, I'm going to try to go get some of the better GMs in the game. He also tried to get Cali guy to come back with Courtney Morgan. But all he did for Courtney was make sure that his pocket was right. So, yes, in a couple of years, I do believe that Lincoln Riley's on the right track in terms of building SC back up to what they were a few years ago when they were rolling with Reggie and national championship by looking at himself and saying, okay, recruiting is going in a whole nother direction. Roster construction is going in a whole nother direction. So I'm at my best. I'm going to try to get the best ones out here. If I can't do it in this cycle, I'm telling you, any hot names out there, I know Coach Riley's going to be ringing off your phone because the defense is going to be right. He got offense right. It's now player acquisition that he got to get right.
Because we know he's going to score points.
No doubt about that.
That's his thing. Let's look at Dallas, Texas, SMU going to the ACC conference. 11-3, SMU last year, 8-0 in conference. They move up to the Power 4. I really like this move for SMU. They're putting a lot of resources in the NIL. Rhett Lashley, a Gus Malzahn disciple, was his quarterback in high school, has coached with him throughout the majority of his tenure at Auburn. And so Rhett Lashley, offensively, great offensive mind, has put an incredible staff around him. I really love what they're doing in the trenches. Offensive line coach Garen Justice, if you watch the offensive line tape from the guys at SMU, I've said it before, it's clinic film when you talk about zone steps, gap steps, whether they're going against 3-man fronts, 4-man fronts, odd, even. He's able to get those guys moving in the right direction. It's a clinic every time I watch him. Calvin Thibodeau on the defensive line, another incredible coach. Pete Jenkins' disciple, played at the University of Oklahoma. D-line guy he played for Bob Stoops, coached up under Bob Stoops. You know by being an Alabama guy, what Pete Jenkins, his imprint has left on Calvin Thibodeau, one of the best guys to come out of that defensive line play system. They have addressed having good coaches in the trenches, have recruited well in the trenches, and you have a bright offensive mind and head coach in a city in Dallas, Texas that loves football. I love SMU moving up.
And when you look at SMU last week, everyone said, oh, man, they struggled against Nevada. Forget all that. Good teams find ways to win big games. In the third and fourth quarter, what do? They said, you know what? We're going to go back to what we do well. Preston Stone, you had a bad first half. It's okay. Real good players bounce back. And then he found R.J. Maryland. And they had the 1-2 connection going all game long. And they won the game. No one cares about how you win games when you come out there and win it. He showed you toughness up front. They show you that the leader at the quarterback position, because if you get pulled out of a game, you go back in, and you finish that game off strong, and your team wins, you've won something in that locker room. With the ACC right now, no one knowing what's going to happen, in a few weeks, check back in with me, Carl, because SMU might just be starting doing this. They're moving up the ladder, step by step. They're not an elevator team. Guys on elevators go in, push a button, get to the top. All we do now is work our way and take our time and take steps to it. See, Reed, SMU saying, let the good times roll.
Smoke, we here, flag on the play segment. Everybody knows what time it is. Who are you throwing your flag on today?
Well, Reed, I'm going to throw my flag on two-time transfers, hoping that when you get somewhere on your third school, that you believe that you're magically going to reappear in something that you weren't at your first two stops. Reed, once you get to a certain age, you are what you are. The most that you can do is become better at what you do. So the hope of leaving two different schools and going to your third, thinking that something's going to change other than a couple of NIL dollars, really you got to figure out who you are. Play to your strength. Improve on your weaknesses. But if you can't run fast, going somewhere else ain't going to happen. If you throw a ton of interceptions as a quarterback, going somewhere else is not going to help you with your decision making if you were making poor decisions from the beginning.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Smoke, when you start talking about two-time transfers, I mean, at some point, you got to compete. I'm going to tell you, my flag on the play is about guys that are already calling about transferring and parents, and we're not even in the week one of the season. You have got to compete. You've got to give yourself an opportunity to play. It's a long season. Keep competing, going at it. I'm going to tell you something real quick, Smoke. My little brother played basketball at Austin Peay State University, Division I school. They went to the tournament. They won the conference a couple of times. And when he was a freshman, 4 games into the season, he wasn't playing a lot. 4 games in, I picked the phone up and I called his head coach, David Luce, and I said, Coach Luce, what is going on? And he said, Carl Reed, don't you ever call me about playing time again. He'll be all right. You can call me, but never again about playing time. My brother goes on. They won the conference twice. He's the 3rd all-time leading scorer in school history, Hall of Fame. Sometimes you just got to let guys compete, and you got to let them work it out, and that's been my philosophy ever since that moment, Smoke.
Reed, good meals take a while to get cooked. Can't rush everything and think it's going to turn out perfect.
You know, people don't have patience because having patience takes too long, Smoke. You can check us out every Tuesday and Thursday on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Central. I'm Carl Reed. This is Smoke Dixon.